This is the Poco F6. I've been using the phone for 2 weeks, and what's interesting is that there are certain areas where it was better than the Pro. So how was it better and what does it lack? Well, let's together find out, shall we? So the overall design and build got me having some mixed feelings because it felt really good in the hands with that sort of a frosted glittery plastic at the back, and the sides are also plastic in a matte finish, so the phone would not attract any fingerprints at all, and it was quite light at about 179 grams. So that was a huge plus. But on the other hand, I honestly did not like the overall camera's design, looking very similar to the Redmi Note 13 series. Now I know some smarty pants out there is going to say, oh, in China it's actually called the Redmi Turbo Max Ultra Power 3000 which I don't care what it's called in China, because let's just focus on this global variant, shall we? So having this camera bump means that the phone was super wobbly if you want to type it on a surface or rested on a table, where the Pro was way better at that. And the phone at the back honestly made the phone look, in a lack of a better word, cheap, because it honestly looks like a lower range Redmi or even a Realme phone. Now before you say anything, I don't have anything against Redmi phones because they are great, but Poco has always had its own thing and its own signature look, especially for a global variant which the Poco F6 doesn't really have. So Poco calls this color titanium, where it seems like it's trying its best to blend between the iPhone and the S24 Ultra's titanium, which I, again, personally felt like they didn't do a very good job at that. Now, even though I do realize that I'm comparing between two very expensive flagships compared to this, but once again, Poco has always had its own thing, and this titanium finish did not really match with that. Then the phone has an IP64 rating, which is higher than the Pro's IP54, hence this phone was better when it comes to water resistant capabilities, which was really great to know. So yeah, a lot of mixed feelings when it comes to the phone's design and build quality, because I loved it for how it felt in the hands, but not really feeling the look of the phone visually, if you get what I mean. So the display is a 6.67-inch AMOLED display with the same max refresh rate up to 120Hz. Now you can leave it at default to adjust dynamically or force it to either 60 or 120Hz, where you can find the settings as usual at the display settings menu. So when idle, the screen will go down to 60Hz instead of 1Hz, like how LTPOs would be, but that would be expected for a phone within this amazing price range. However, even though the screen brightness is not as high compared to the Pro, maximizing the nits value to 2400 nits instead of 4000 nits, but honestly during my usage, even when taking photos outdoor, I had no issues with the phone screen at all. And another surprising advantage that this phone had over the Pro is the Corning Gorilla Glass Victus instead of Corning Gorilla Glass version 5 on the Pro, so weird but true. Then the pixel density is also lower than the Pro, but there's nothing to be worried about that, as the screen on the phone was really still great. Playback specification on Netflix was at Widevine L1 together with HDR10 and Dolby Vision certified, so there's no compromises on the phone's video taking capabilities, watching movies or even videos on YouTube as well. Then instead of the side-mounted fingerprint sensor, Poco has decided to give this non-Pro variant the in-display fingerprint sensor because, well, it deserves it. Now as for cameras, it comes with only two cameras, a 50MP f1.6 main lens with OIS, a different sensor than the Pro. Then there's also an 8MP ultra-wide lens. Then the so-called compromise compared to the Pro is the fact that it does not have a dedicated macro camera, which was kinda useless based on my tests on the Pros anyway. So not having it on the phone was fine by me, but in case you love taking macro shots, then you'll probably be bummed that it has been missing over here. However, another weird but good decision that Poco made on this non-Pro is to have a bigger 20MP camera to only a 16MP on the Pro. So the high megapixel photos look great when it comes to the rear lenses. It has 2x zoom on this particular mode, but as usual, I wouldn't use this unless you really need to get that high 50MP resolution detail. Then the ultra-wide lenses look great as seen in these photos with great dynamic range and no softness at the edges. The main lenses were amazing as expected, even though it's a different sensor than the Pro. So was the digital 2x zoom, and you can zoom up to 10x, but of course you will lose the quality of the image, so use it very wisely, especially when you only have a lot of light. Then portrait mode for objects was quite interesting because this particular image of the signage didn't seem to capture the portrait mode properly, probably because it's too far, but it was fine on other phones, so that is something for you guys to note, but not a huge deal. But if you're taking photos in a closer range for objects on this portrait mode, it did turn out very well even with complicated objects, and it did very well on this portrait mode for people, even ducks. But the edge detection for a turkey's butt, especially on the edges, not so much. Then the front camera also performed great, whether or not it's for the regular selfie or the portrait selfie. It really shows how well the HDR capabilities, especially when it comes to the dynamic range in the background blurred area, as seen in these photos. Then switching over to nighttime, the ultra-wide lenses was just decent as it didn't do a very good job when it comes to handling lamppost lights very well. And the overall image quality was not as good as the daytime shots unless you're taking more of an indoor low light shots. The main lenses did perform well, especially with no noticeable noise up to 2x zoom, but beyond that there will be some quality degrade. Then portrait mode at night was really nice, beyond expectations, whether or not it's on a person or even on objects too. And selfie photos did also turn out great, especially on the portrait mode, similar to the front camera pictures during the day. Then as for video, the ultra-wide cameras shoot up to 1080p, and that is to be expected since the Pro also has up to that recording resolution. However, the main lenses record up to 4K 30fps compared to 8K 24fps on the Poco F6 Pro, and it's not like the 8K recording on the Pro was the best in the world because it doesn't go beyond 24 FPS. I still think that that's the wrong frame rate because 30 FPS is the GOAT. Now the quality of the stabilization for the ultra-wide lenses were great, and the main lenses were decent, and there's also an option to record in HDR mode as well, which is what exactly I've done in the main lenses video, where you can have some flexibility in post. Then the rear lenses video quality at night was just decent at the ultra-wide lenses. The stabilization was not as good as how it was on the daytime shots, with some jitters on the footage, and the main lenses also did just okay for the stabilization, but the overall quality was obviously better than the ultra-wide lenses. Then as for the front video camera, the video quality at night was not as good as the pictures, but overall decent with still great stabilization. And here's a vlogging test to see and hear how the camera recording is for the audio when it comes to a vlogging situation. Alright, so this is a vlogging test using the Poco F6. What's interesting is that the Poco F6 front camera is 1,000,000 times better than the F6 Pro. I don't think it's because only the fact that it has a bigger sensor, but I just feel like probably the Poco F6 Pro's software has some issues with that. Speaking of software, very interesting fact is that after I upgraded to the latest version of the HyperOS, one main thing that I've also noticed is the fact that the camera video recording had a little glitch whereby I couldn't record beyond 720p. So that is something for you all to keep in mind, but after I just restarted the phone, it was fine. So yeah, you can see. So yeah, I think overall from a vlogging test, this is how it sounds. So test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. So what do you think? Do you guys like the video quality and the audio quality? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you guys are enjoying this video so far, a nice big thumbs up would be very much appreciated, and a subscription would be lovely too for us to grow this channel further and to do more videos like this. Thank you very much in advance. Now, as of the recording of this video, the Xiaomi HyperOS version is at version 1.0.4.0 on Android 14, and Poco promises 3 years of Android updates and 4 years of security updates, so that was really nice to know. Downloading apps and scrolling and navigating on the phone, especially loading apps, was fast thanks to the UFS 4.0 storage compared to last year's version 3.1. But the transfer speeds on this phone was really slow. Because it took me ages to copy all the photos and the videos that I took on the phone, since it only has USB version 2.0 like the previous generation and the Pro version of this phone as well. Then the dark mode optimization was perfect throughout apps like Todoist, Google Docs and even Notion, but as usual FB doesn't do very well on this, where it is the same for other Android OS, which could be a hit or miss depending on the different software versions. Then the typing experience was lovely, but the haptic feedback may not be best compared to phones like OnePlus or even Nothing phone series, but overall it was a great phone to type on daily. Now, I did mention in depth on all the details on what's great about HyperOS on my Poco F6 Pro video, including the AI photo features, where features like removing subject from the background seems to work on the Pro, Pro, but not on this non-Pro version. But other features like the AI expansion does work very well under the crop tool like the Pro, which did do an amazing job, so check out that video in case you guys haven't done so. So how is it gaming on this new Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, a more affordable version of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip? Well, starting with Genshin Impact, the best gameplay was at highest settings or the highest graphic at 60 FPS with motion blur set to high. So yes, that was amazing to know because the game felt smooth without lag or any micro stuttering. There was no serious heat or battery drain during 15 minutes of continued gameplay, and this was on the highest setting. However, if you're a hardcore gamer who want to enjoy a longer experience of a gameplay, I would just recommend to use on the medium settings. So yeah, believe it or not, the gaming experience on this phone felt like I was playing it on a Pro or even a flagship smartphone, which was very impressive indeed. Then I tried PUBG Mobile and it ran great at Ultra HD graphics and Ultra frame rate as well, and the texture of the game looked amazing, and here's where the model also loads very fast too, probably due to its faster SSD speeds and of course the new chipset as well, where the phone barely felt warm about 20 minutes plus of continued gameplay with no battery drain issues at all. Now if you guys are lost on all the details mentioned, don't worry because there's a written version of this video at our website at www.adamlogo.tv, and we also have an official IG account for the channel as well. Do give it a follow, links will be down below. Now the battery capacity on the Poco F6 was also at 5000 mAh, but I really wanted to know whether or not the battery life would be better than the Pro because the Pro did not do very well in this department. Well, the good news is that the battery life on this was way better, where based on my average tests, I got an average of 4.5 hours of screen on time before heading to bed with still 21% battery left. So that was amazing to know. Then compared to the Pro, this comes with a 90 watts charger inside of the box, which was better than last year's 67 watts. And you can go between 0 to 100% battery in about 38 minutes, which was plenty fine looking on a day-to-day use. So since it has a plastic bag, there's no wireless charging, which apparently many commented on how not having wireless charging is not an issue, so I guess we'll leave it at that. So in conclusion, with a starting price of only 1,799 ringgit for the 8GB of RAM and 256GB storage variant, well, I'll put the USD conversion rate for you guys to see over here as well. I think that the phone does hold very well, not only against other smartphones within this price range, but even against the Pro sibling as well. Since there are some areas where it was indeed better than the Pro. Now, even though I'm not a fan of the overall design of the phone, the cameras, the display, and especially the battery, this thing has my vote compared to the Pro. And speaking of the Pro, check out my in-depth review of the Poco F6 Pro over here. And is it time to finally compare with this phone?